Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. This is going to be a really cool show. The man that I have, the secret guest, no, it's not a secret guest, but it's Stephen Gentner, a friend of mine from Instagram and somebody I met through my channel. He is an Overstreet advisor. He's written for Comic Book Marketplace, and he's also the guy who I think I mentioned the story of Sandman and his first appearance. Well, he was the guy that did the research, found out who was or where was the first appearance of Sandman, which was really in New York's Fair from 1939. So we're gonna bring Stephen onto the show and and have our little interview. So I'm gonna add Stephen to the show and welcome. It's
Hello.
good. Like we talk all the time, actually. So this is kind of an interesting thing where, I've been begging Stephen to come on the show for a while now because I know he has an awesome collection. He makes my collection look really lame, but
No.
he's going to show some pretty cool stuff, and yeah, it'll be fun. So Stephen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was a hotelier in my real life, my working life. Third generation. My grandfather started in the 1943. We bought the Mallory Hotel in Portland, and then in 1950 bought the Imperial Hotel. My father ran that, and Grandpa at the Mallory. And then when I came to work in 1976, then all three of us were there until Grandpa passed in 77. So anyway, during that time, my childhood collection, I started collecting about 1960. I turned 69 on the 19th. That was a Monday.
Oh, happy
And
birthday!
but a lot of the books when I grew up were DC books. Marvel came along later, which was, but in my neighborhood, it was all about the Legion of Superheroes and in adventure comics, and everybody
Mhm.
collected them. And we would all get together and share and all that other stuff as far as what's going on. In about 1989, 88 or so, Maggie Thompson and Old Man Thompson printed my letter about the Sandman. And uh, by virtue of that, they invited Bob Overstreet invited me to come back and become one of the immortals in 1995. And I
Wow.
met a whole bunch of people there who opened my eyes to a lot of different books. My childhood, I was a completist collector, just like you.
Yeah, just like me.
And I had my base grade was about fine VG, but I mean a whole bunch of runs, Tales of Suspense, Flash, Green Lantern, Justice League, all these, and but all of them were in relatively lower grade because that's all I could afford.
Yeah, yeah.
And then once I
I,
got
I
into my,
understand that completely. Like, like,
you might go with that. But when
yeah,
I
yeah.
got into my earning years, what I decided, I basically traded my entire collection for a credit with a dealer, and he specialized in a lot of timely Schomburg stuff, very nice things. And he had just gotten the Mile High Black Terrors and
Mhm.
Excitings and what have you. And so I basically worked a deal with this huge credit. I got all the Black Terror Mile Highs. And then from then on, it was what I did was as much Schomburg material as I could find is my favorite,
Mhm.
particularly the propaganda covers because
Yeah, they're
his
great.
renditions are so beautiful and so inspired. And the candy bar cover, the death ray from above. I mean, you name it.
Yeah,
Damsel in distress. He has the Germans always have a brazier with them cranking the thing. With for the Germans, it was always a swastika branding iron, and with the
yeah.
Japanese, it was always a chrysanthemum. But that
Mhm.
there were certain things that he always had, and then the guys coming every inch of the corner. They're little vignettes of danger and what have you, and
I
then
know. Yeah, it's great.
the
His
heroes
covers are just
coming
amazing.
the heroes coming in at the last minute to save the day. So then I started rebuilding my collection with Golden Age. The first Golden Age I got was World's Finest. My dad's mother my grandmother, in about 1960, I'm down in the basement because they were boring upstairs. And in and amongst her art projects was the cover of World's Finest Six as a divider. And so
Oh, wow.
I'm looking at this and I'm going, wow, look at this. Old, it's mysterious, it's golden age. Um,
Mhm.
and so then I spent the next 2.5 hours in the basement digging through past dated cans of pears, and it was really, and nothing. All she did was she just ripped the cover off and then just used it as a divider. So when I
Wow.
started to collect Golden Age, the very first book I had to get was World's Finest Six, because I wanted to see what was behind the cover.
What was
So that's
beyond the
so what I ended up doing is I ended up the World's Finest was the first run I got, and then from there, then all of these things about Schomburg and all the other stuff came up, and then I also dedicated myself to buying high grade silver for my favorite titles. Not all of them. I had all of
Mhm.
them, most all of them, but I wanted to get nice high grade copies of my very favorite titles, and
What were some of your favorite titles?
well, Flash in particular, then
Oh.
Adventure, in Marvel, Strange Tales, Tales to Astonish, because Doctor Strange and Ant-Man were I love them. Also,
Mhm.
Tales of Suspense, also Thor. I never was a big Spider-Man collector. Never was a big Fantastic Four collector.
Mhm.
I just the soap opera thing about it. Stan Lee working his magic so that
Mhm.
the life of the character was the primary thrust, and then he inserted all the he's fighting Doctor Octopus or Doctor Doom or whoever's being
Yeah.
fought with all of the personal problems that they're having together. Whereas with DC, it was more straightforward. I
Mhm.
like Barry Allen very much, Carmen Infantino's art, and also the John Broom's writing or Gardner Fox, and
Mhm.
those guys really. I liked Barry Allen. He was a thinking man. He was a good
Mhm.
person. He was, and his ability to translate speed onto paper is
Mhm.
still the best. I really, really, really I liked Carmen Infantino's work, and
Mhm.
Hal Jordan to a certain degree. And the Atom, I like because not only do you have Gil Kane's ability to communicate movement.
Mhm.
Murphy Anderson's inks, of course, are fantastic, but Murphy Anderson by himself, like in Hawkman, it's more like a portrait. His pictures are more like portraits. Gil Kane can convey, to my eye, conveys
Mhm.
more movement, and being able
Mhm.
to have Murphy
Action kind
Anderson's,
of.
yeah, Murphy Anderson's inks and stuff is really, really, it's wonderful. So that's pretty much how I go. Behind me, here in my sanctum sanctorum, I have a few pinball machines from the 90s, Williams pinball machines. And there you see some of my books. I had a system built to slide in and out and what have you. And I have a vault where I keep the big books. And
Mhm.
so that's pretty much the size of it. I started writing for or commenting for the Overstreet, as I said, in 1995. And a lot of the Dave Alexander from DTA Collectibles opened my eyes to Fiction House and Fox. And he would say, "Look, Steve, you need this." And I said, "Why do I need it?" And he says, "Look, I'll send you some stuff and see what you think." And of course, when I looked inside Fiction House, it
Mm.
really changed me because, like in the standard Nidor stuff, the covers are really the best part of it.
Yeah, yeah, they're amazing.
The interior art is pedestrian. But when you go into Fiction House, not only is the cover good, but every story is good. The art is good, the writing's good. You have a
Mhm.
variety of really, really good artists from the Iger House that they got it from. And then, of course, Matt Baker and Jack Kamen in Fox, who are, what Kamen said that whenever they said we need a good girl cover, where's Baker, where's Kamen?
Mhm.
And whoever, and a lot of times then that's how they would get delegated to do these covers.
Mm.
The other one that I really do like too is Feldstein in
Yeah, yeah.
like Junior
Oh,
and some of the others that he did, and I really find him to be a wonderful good girl artist. Very short, very short window where he did that, as you know.
Yeah, I know. He sort of got out of it once he went on to EC. It was kind of weird. But yeah, I'm a big Al Felstein fan. I'm actually trying to get a complete collection of Al Felstein Good Girl art. And
I
there's only
think
2 books left that I need.
just 2.
Yep, for the
That's
Good
great.
Girl art section of Al Felstein.
I want to just say right here that Alan really has done a wonderful job portraying comics and talking about comics, and his generosity in sharing your collection with us is wonderful. You have found stuff that I've never seen before, and I'm particularly impressed with your Seduction of the Innocent collection, putting together all of those books. There are it was a seminal moment in comics when that occurred, because the Wild West basically ended. The Golden Age ended. Just
I
as
know,
you
it's so
said.
sad.
The thing about Wortham, Dr. Wortham,
Mhm.
and I think we just talked about this, is that the thing that I really take umbrage to is this homosexual business he has about Batman and Robin. And all they were trying to do is they were trying to have a child sidekick to basically have another hook to bring kids in to enjoy it. And
Yeah.
plus, the hero has someone to talk to, and then the kid can save the hero. And the number of sidekicks, I mean, it goes on and on. Green Hero and
Yeah.
Speed, Black
Pretty much
Terror.
everybody gets a sidekick.
I mean, it's
It's like,
just there's a slew of them. So all of those guys are, all of them are homosexual preying on these kids. I think that Wortham, German, uh, uh, had a bit of a twisted mind. I mean, I think he started believing some of his own stuff. But the thing that, I'll just say this: his method, the scientific method, is to have a premise, and then once you have the premise, the scientific method is to try to disprove the message.
Yep.
It is not to basically. A juvenile delinquent, he robbed a store. He's in there, and then Wortham goes in. He says, "Tell me, Johnny, do you like comic books?" "Oh yeah, I really love comic books." There it is. Comic books cause crime for children. It says, "Do you like ice cream?" "Yes, I like ice cream." Ice cream causes crime. It's obvious that that's what it. So
Yeah.
it was so blatant on how he approached this. But 2 things worked in his favor for this. The first is the mothers of the day really didn't care to have uh, uh, superhero stuff, and also the good girl stuff and the violence and what have you, and crime and all that was going on. Mothers didn't dig that. So then, if they couldn't figure a way to destroy the comics themselves, the paper drives of World War II was a perfect patriotic way to get rid of. Come on, Alan, let's get that stack.
Get rid of all your comics.
Let's get a stack of those action and what have you comics, those Captain Americas, and let's give them for the war effort. The mothers hated them, and what followed then with the drumbeat towards the end of after the war was over, and the women, the mothers, really were agitated about this, and this Senator Kefauver decided that here was a venue for him. He had presidential higher political aspirations than just senator.
Yeah.
So then that's when these hearings started, because he figured he could get all the women vote, and Seduction of the Innocent was exactly the vehicle they needed. A doctor saying that this is a psychological doctor for children, and his argument was that why would you read Moby Dick by a stream under a tree when you have comics like Captain America 46, the Holocaust cover with blood and loading Jews into the ovens and things like that? How can it compete, this graphic disgustingness? And also, of course, Gaines and all of his
he bumbled a bit.
family-friendly fare with the pre-code horror. And I confess to you that pre-code horror, I appreciate it, but I am much more in line with good girl sci-fi and superheroes and stuff, in particular the various artists. However, So that was, and then of course the code came in, and there were book burnings and all that other stuff. And I was just reflecting last night on what a miracle it is that a lot of this golden age material is still available for us to look at, with the ravages of time, with mothers throwing them away, with grandmas throwing them away, and all of these
ripping off the covers and then using them as dividers. And
oh, that's the most heinous of all. I mean, that's just wrong. I mean,
that's so
so
messed
anyway,
up.
that's pretty much the thing. I wrote for. I met Gary Carter when I was back in Timonium, Maryland. They had just opened up their offices there, and Steve Jeppe had just purchased Bob Overstreet's collection, which was extensive, and we were all of us advisors and would-be advisors were invited, and they had just built this beautiful gallery, and the paint still smelled fresh. And Jeppe took us back into his office, and there in his office were Mile High comics, raw, stacked up.
Wow.
The smell in that room, if you've ever smelled a Mile High comic, is very, very delicious. The newsprint and the ink, it's just amazingly fresh.
Almost like freshly printed.
Right. Well, yeah. And the whole room just was permeated with this smell. So all of us guys, collectors, were wandering through salivating. It was the most gaudy, pretentious, overbearing, in-your-face display of golden age comics. And all I can say to Steve Jeppe, having been there, is well done.
Wow. So I was actually always curious about this. Like back in the day, what did people use to store the comics? Like nowadays we bag and board them and stuff with plastic. But what did they do back in the day?
Well, was when plastic bags finally started, the polyethylene bags, I think, then they shifted to polypropylene, and it was a process. When I was a kid, I sleeved all my books, bags, no boards, but bags.
Well, what kind of bags?
They were polyethylene comic bags. They had them. Otherwise, you'd stack them in. You'd put them in a Foot Locker. You put them in a cedar chest. You put them in a paper bag. I mean, they could be in a cardboard box. I mean, they just lived wherever they ended up. Mostly like in a cardboard box to kind of hold them all together. But
I remember how they survive in a 9/8 or something. You see these 9/8s from from the golden age, and it's just like, how did that happen? How are they?
The Mile Highs happened for a very, very specific reason. It was in a cold, dry, dark place, very, very low humidity. And Edgar Church, who was the fellow who did bought the Mile Highs, had a chest that a cupboard system that he had devised and built, and he had them all edge by edge by edge by edge by edge, all like this, stored very carefully into this unit, and just left. And he wanted to become an artist, so he was using comic books as templates and things for how he would be drawing. So what it ended up being was that when they were all found in, because of the conditions that they were stored in, was just perfect conditions. And so that's where, and I remember when they came out in the later 70s or whatever, and what I found out was I remember them saying double guide for the Mile Highs, they're so good. And I couldn't understand that. In other words, a book that's $35 would be $70. Ridiculous. It's ridiculous money. But it changed the grading system completely, because books that were considered near mint suddenly became VF minuses in comparison to true. The other thing that it was good about the exposure, and when comic book stores started in the 70s, was that they were purpose built for comics. And once the value of the book started to go up, the public awareness of this, and books would then be flushing out for people who would find them and then sell them. The areas that you could sell, the places you could sell, were much more limited. There were the auction houses and all the refinements, and especially the internet and the information that's available for everyone to find out about.
It's so much easier now to find stuff.
It's but back then it was there wasn't the same. I was very lucky to grow up when I did,
Hmm.
because I grew up right in the last couple years of 10-cent books, and I remember
Hmm.
when 12 cents came in, and so I grew up having Silver Age books of every description,
Hmm.
and was wonderful, wonderful stuff. It still is. And I remember in the Bronze Age, when it finally ended, I said, the Bronze Age was very reflective of the Silver Age. There were the same ideas and plots and things. And finally, I said, I don't think they can really do that much. And I kind of drifted away.
Hmm.
And then The Dark Knight Returns with Frank Miller came back in, and it was such
Hmm.
a revelation that a lot of
Hmm.
people like me, we said, wow. And Neil Adams and those people brought me back in. But then it's just been now, as most of my golden age stuff I bought between 1995 and 2001. And
Wow.
around around 1998 or so, I had sold some books, and it became apparent to me that, looking then to try to replace it with the additional funds that I had made, I
Hmm.
learned right away that it was not an easy thing to find, even then, to find these books.
Hmm.
And so, and a lot of times you get one shot at a book and that's it. I mean, literally. And I stopped selling. I stopped selling books right around 1998 or 99, give or take. And that was it, and so all the books that I bought at full market price and a little bit above, because I always tried to find the nicest ones that I could find and or afford. And it was the only hobby I had. And working at the hotel over the years, I was there for about 25 years working. I had worked
Wow.
there even earlier as a teenager and other things too, learning the business.
Learning the ropes. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot better than someone who hasn't done the job, and someone's trying to tell you, employee is trying to tell you, "Oh no, it's really hard." I said, "Dude, look, I did this job for 2 years. Here's what you do." Oh, okay. But that's pretty much the way that I have approached, and by writing for the comic book marketplace, and also writing as an advisor to the guide, my writing skills were improved when I was working writing for the CDM, and there are a
Hmm.
lot of really fun articles. And if the hobby would search those out, well, you'll find me too, which is of course the reason you
Hmm.
must buy them. But there's a lot of really, really good information, and it's all Jeppy paid for all of this. I don't think he ever made a dime on it. And but it was a beautiful vehicle to have information. Don and Maggie Thompson had their newspaper, which was always so fun to read. They always had lots of really good information in that, and there were some things like alter ego and other things that were going on
Yeah.
as well that would give you information. But a lot of this stuff, the guys on the East Coast or who were the advanced collectors in California, they had access to all this stuff in stores that still had this stuff. I'm in Portland, Oregon, or what's left of
Yeah.
it.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and So the amount of books that actually found their way here is not anywhere approaching the Chicago, all these areas that have large population centers. And
Yeah.
so a lot of these books, a lot of the Silver Age books, romance, and a lot of that other stuff, they weren't even on the newsstand. It was Marvel and DC and Archie, and Dell, and that was really about it.
Yeah.
Um,
So you're really limited. Like that's the way it was when I was growing up too. That I was really limited in terms of what I could get. Just there wasn't the access back then to books.
Charlton insinuated itself in for a while as well, and I
Mhm.
have to confess that Charlton and Dell both really didn't thrill me as a kid. It was it was
I like the
very,
Disney
very
stuff personally, but yeah.
well, of course, Disney, and they didn't really even have Disney stuff there either. It was, I think, the newsstands had that stuff, but I was up at in a neighborhood where there was
Mhm.
a dime store. Uh, the one thing about comics, there was a newsstand in the lobby, or in the vestibule to our restaurant in the Imperial. And
Mhm.
when we would get done with church on Sundays, we would go to the hotel for breakfast. And of course, it was very much a busman's holiday for my father, because he's writing down things that are wrong the whole time and observing and all this other stuff. It was like work. It was work.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
as we would wait for the breakfast to come, Dad would say, "You can go ahead and pick out a comic book." And so that's where I got my Amazing Spider-Man #1.
Wow.
It's where I think I got my Journey into Mystery '83. And the very first book I remember is The World's Finest with Mixius Pitlick and
I can
Batman.
never say his name.
On the cover.
Yeah, I always mess it up.
And and of course and that's we would be reading those while we're waiting for breakfast to come. And then
Mhm.
we ended up then I started to accumulate books. And my first stack of really nice old stuff, all the really nice old stuff I had
Mhm.
about 1962. My mother did not object to comic books at all. There were a lot of mothers that were friends of mine who didn't like the superhero books at all. They could have
Mhm.
Disney, they could have Dell, they could have Archie, but they couldn't have the superheroes. There was still
Mhm.
a stigma to it.
Yeah.
And my mother she abhorred clutter. I mean, absolutely, it was just she couldn't stand it. And so I had books around in the family room and what have you. And she said, Stephen, I really don't want those around. Deal with them. I said, okay. So I gathered up all my books. I got a stack about, I don't know, about a foot and a half high.
Mhm.
One of which was Secret Origins Annual, the big first Secret Origins Annual. And we had a cooler by the back door. Our house was from a 1925 house. And so there was an empty shelf. And so I put all of them very carefully into the cooler. And so then a couple days passed, and then I went in after school to look to see. I wanted to read that Secret Origins Annual #1,
Sure.
and I opened the cooler, and all the books were gone. And I said, "Hey,
Uh,
Mom, what happened? Where are my books?" And she said, "Oh, I thought you didn't want them anymore." I said, "Mom, I put them there so they wouldn't be clutter out of your way. Where are
Mhm.
they?" She said, "Well, I put them in the garbage."
Oh
And I
man.
said, "Oh, is the garbage still there?" "Oh no, they took it out yesterday." And I explained to my mother as gently as I could, my hair was on fire, that she
Mhm.
shouldn't throw my books away, and I'd put them there so that she wouldn't have to have clutter. But she found them anyway, and so there is my mom threw my comic books away story.
Wow, that's sad. Actually, my mom never threw away my comics, which is kind of weird. But the ones that I was allowed to get were all the non-superhero stuff. So I have a great collection of Gold Key books from when I was a kid. But yeah, they're all in really bad shape. I didn't treat them well myself. So
Well, and a lot of the Disney books too. There were kids considered them like toys. Same thing
yeah,
with dolls. They consider them
yeah,
toys. They'd be in the toy chest, or they'd be stacked up and rolled up, or what have you.
yeah.
But I will say this about Dell Comics. Dell Comics were well made. The materials
Mhm.
they used, the painted covers, and a lot of them were 15 cents very early on. But
Mhm.
when you compare that to the cheesy paper that Martin Goodman used on Marvel and the shoddy production places that they went, cheapest they could find,
Mhm.
especially with the cutters that they used to cut the edges of those books, the blades were dull or weren't replaced properly or sharpened properly with the
Mhm.
correct intervals. So they crushed all these edges of those books, which leads to the Marvel chipping once the age of the
Yeah, I
drying
was
out.
gonna say that. Yeah, that.
And and as a defect, Marvel chipping is accepted. I think that Marvel chipping if you have a book that's a 6.5 or something like that, and the whole right edge is all chewed up and everything else, and it
Looks
could still have
terrible.
a 6.5. I'm somewhat mystified by that.
Mm.
But I guess the Comic Connect auction has 4 AF-15s coming up from 6 down to
And
3.
all have Merle chipping.
Every one of them has Marvel
Yeah.
chipping.
That book is notorious for Marvel chipping, actually. I
Uh,
was so happy when I got my copy that it had no Marvel chipping. That was like, it's really rare to see that.
I'm the same way. The other thing was the Fantastic Four 5 is one that's notorious, and
Hmm.
X-Men #1 is very much a Marvel chippy book.
Hmm.
Although there are more, I know, but I just you have to remember that this was a business. These were throwaway items for 10 or 12 cents,
Yeah.
and they weren't worth.
Nobody was supposed to keep them. Like they're supposed to be
future generations, the 100 years from now, we want to. It just wasn't what it was.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have a few books if you would like me to show.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was gonna say, like, I haven't even done my question. So show me some of your books from your collection. So.
This one is Captain
Here,
America.
I'm gonna make you big. One sec here. I'm gonna,
There you go.
put you. There you go. Now we can see it.
And this one is really a very, very difficult book. Matter of fact, this was one of the books that I sold, and it was probably a 5.5. After I sold it about a week later, I regretted it because I realized, how important a book it was. This 3.0 copy actually presents like a 6, but there is some brittleness in the pages, and so they hung the brittle pages on me. The majority of the book is not brittle, but this they did so. They say, well, get it regraded and all that stuff. And frankly, I'm not really much into the redoing stuff very much if I can avoid it.
Yeah, me too.
But this one, and in the day when they would have a list of Captain America books for sale in a catalog, they would go 40 to 50. And they'd be one price. So here you have this book, which is truly an amazing historic book.
Crazy cover, by the way.
And the next book is like a bank vault being opened up. Well, if the same price for a bank vault being opened up and Captain America saving Jews from going into the ovens, I mean, you just can't. Why would a mother actually object to this? That's the thing I don't understand. How could she object to such a story? All right, that's that one. Then, of course, Adventure Comics was everybody in my neighborhood collected Adventure for the Legion of Superheroes, and I finally found a copy of Adventure that had nice colors, and I had gone into my LCS because I had waited a long time for the first He-Man and first Black Adam modern covers, and I thought they were very nice, very, very nice books, and it took forever to get them back. And they both came back 9/8 with white pages. I was astounded, wow. Happily so. But then he was opening up a box of books that came in at the same time, in which this book was, and I had to have it because this book has eluded me since 1960. To everybody, and of course I had no access to this, but finding out what the very first price guide when the first Legion of Superheroes was, so I was asking all my friends and all that, no one had it.
Yeah, it's a hard book to find, actually. Even now, it's still a hard book to find.
And the thing about it too is when I had seen them later on in collecting, they're always very, very well read. And this is the thing: in the day, a lot of the kids, we passed these around and we were careful, but we're kids and we're reading these things. Let me see, get that. There we go. Yeah. So it took. That's why you always, and also Action 252 with the first Supergirl, always very, very tough book to find in higher grade because these books were loved and they were read and they were enjoyed, and but of course what they're supposed to be. But by the way, behind me you can see I have Bride of Pinbots right behind me. Funhouse is in the middle, and on the far end is Whirlwind. And the one in the middle, the state of Oregon uses quite often when they're saying for people who have gambling addictions. Pinball machines, people would gamble with these things to, for money and all this other stuff, which, that's why I always found them in bars and what have you. The video poker games basically spelled the death of the pinball machines in those venues. Now it's more like arcades. But they always would show this one, the fun house is the people that have aversion, or not aversion, but are hooked on gambling. It's great.
Wow. Never knew that.
That's why I had to have it. And of course, Good Girl is one of my very favorite genres.
Yeah, me too.
And this one I got. I had a lesser copy that was part of the trade to get. I had a 5.5 that was a very nice copy, but then I got a chance to get this 8.0, and it's a wonderful, beautiful actual cover with Betty, and it is the best Betty cover as far as Betty's boobs. Uh, uh, uh,
The sweater style.
the tight sweater. It's not Al Feldstein.
Yep.
It's not Matt Baker, but it's pretty darn good. This is.
Yeah, well, Bob Montana is
Oh, I
awesome.
was going to say the Montana had some very nice stuff, and
Hmm.
the Archie was acceptable, and this is it's just a really great book.
So for the viewers that don't know, this book that he's showing right now is kind of considered, to me, the grail of the Archie run in terms of the good girl art. I'd say it's like the number one good girl art cover for the whole entire run of Archie. Would you agree with that, or?
Oh yes, definitely. But
Yeah.
I have to say that the artist Harry Lucy, and I think it's issue number, I can't remember which it is, where Betty and Veronica are in the gymnasium, and
That's
Betty's in a
another big
black
one.
leotard, and Betty's just in shorts and a t-shirt. And why do you say that Archie chases me? And she says, does the mouse trap chase the mouse?
I
But the Harry Lucy's art is wonderful, and that particular book is another one of my absolute favorites. There are several that are really.
Yeah, I just picked that book up on the weekend.
Oh, you did.
Like
Uh,
literally on the weekend.
the other thing with Archie and how they got away with this are the double entendre covers,
Oh
where
yeah,
where
innuendo.
it's I don't have to say them, everybody knows them, but
Mhm.
there are a lot of those ones, and it's I think that the editors and the artists had a lot of fun with that. It's just Archie. It's just Archie. I
Yeah,
had
yeah,
to,
yeah.
you know, I have this one other one.
Oh, wait, let
This
me.
one, I was at my um, LCS, and not my LCS, well, it was the dealer that I traded my childhood collection for.
Mhm.
And every so often he would get a collection in, and he would say, "Would you like to come and see if you want anything?" And so I would go to his place, and I picked up. That's where I picked up my Mile Highs. Later on, he broke up He had the exciting run as well of Mile Highs, and he broke them up. And so I wanted the war covers, and so those are the ones I went after. A friend of mine wanted the candy bar cover so much that
Mhm.
I relinquished it to him, and he traded me his copy, which is every bit as nice as the Mile High. I mean, it was just it's almost like virtually identical, and he
Mhm.
charged me the full freight on the book, which was $35. I think it was exorbitant. Anyway, so inside his kitchen, he had a couple of big paper bags, again with books, raw books, Golden Age collection that he had gotten. I have no idea where.
Mhm.
And in the middle of the stack it looked like more like of a magazine sticking out the edges. So I'm taking all the books out and what have you, a lot of Captain Marvels and Whiz comics and what have you. And then in the middle was this book.
Nice. Oh, yeah. That's Captain America. What number?
That's the Captain America Annual.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's intensely rare. Oh, lots of glare.
It's the cases. It's really hard to see. Anyway, that's pretty good. But this was there are very few of these,
Mhm.
and this one's like at 3.0 is I think the second highest graded. I mean
Yeah.
that's not qualified or restored. When I bought this book, it had restoration on it, and I sent it in to CGC to have it slabbed.
Remove.
And when it came back, it was a 4.5 restored.
Oh.
And so I had the restoration removed, and it went down to a 3. and mostly it was basically color touch on the spine, and there were some tear seals, and the book is it's somewhat dirty.
Hmm.
With cleaning, the dirt wouldn't come off.
So wait, the back is very plain. There's nothing on the back at all.
No, and the inside cover and the back cover inside also are plain. And
That's
then
very
the interior, there are two books. It's Marvel Mystery 33 and Captain America 18, 18, and they're in black and white. And
strange.
so the Canadian, this was produced in Canada,
Oh, okay.
and and what
Is
they
it
did.
Bell Features that did that one?
Beg your pardon?
Is it Bell Features?
No, it's Timely Comics. Timely Comics, no date, and the cover is by Sid Shores.
Okay, so a lot of them were done by Bell Features, like where they would kind of reprint them.
Yeah, God, I'm having trouble. Everything is reversed.
It's,
So am
it's
I.
okay. We can see it.
But anyway, so the finding these is there's a Marvel Mystery Annual as well. But having a shot, I had a doctrine that I learned very quickly going to comic conventions, and I call it the target of opportunity doctrine.
Mhm.
And that is when you go into a con and you go to like say it's your first table you go to, and
Mhm.
there is a book you want that book, and it's more expensive than you want to go, maybe a little bit. And you're going to go, oh, I'm going to come back later and I'll work on the guy. I'll wait till it's later in the con, and that way they'll
Mhm.
be more amenable to it. You go back, and of course, the book is gone.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that happened to me a couple times. And I said, okay, no more. I said, if you're going to, you have to assume you're not going to see that book.
Mhm.
And you may not even see it again, especially if it's a tough book. And so what I do is when I go in and I have a book, I hold it in my hands. And until I'm absolutely 110% sure I don't want to buy it, I
Mhm.
hold on to it, because the minute I put it down, there's a
Somebody
guy
else will do that.
breathing over my shoulder who's
Yeah,
going to go in and say, oh, I'll take it right now. So
I've had
that
that
is,
happen before too, where you're looking at a book, you put it down just for a second to, kind of figure out if you're going to get it or not, and then the person right next to you picks it up and then buys it, and it's like, what?
I actually, I've had, and I've gone to so many conventions.
Mhm.
I have to say the bloom is kind of off the rose of conventions now for me,
Mhm.
for two reasons. One is there aren't as many comic dealers at all.
Yeah, it's
And
very
there's so
limited.
much cosplay and pop culture and
Mhm.
Funko Pops, and I mean, uh, tattooing,
Yeah,
fan.
that surprised me, the tattooing. Who's going to get a tattoo at a Comic Con? I never understood that.
I don't either. But they rent the space because they want they want to have fill the place up with stuff. And
Hmm.
it's hard to sit down and cement floors and big crowds and being bumped around, especially.
Hmm.
And I also had a number of times when I'm working a deal on a book, and some looky-loo comes in behind me and says, "Oh, that's a great book! Wow, wow, what a fantastic book!" And I'm kind of going, "Well, this, that. I'm trying to work a deal.
You're trying to get the,
I'm
no, it's not
trying
that
to
way. You want the price to go down, not up.
get shot down," is the technical term.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, but now it's more like I have dealers who know who know the sort of stuff that I go for, and they'll call
Hmm.
me up or, "Hey, I found this book," or whatever, and what have you. But there have been a lot of many books where you have, sometimes it hurts. For example, when a big collection comes in, some collector finally gives up his collection at my
Hmm.
LCS, and he gave up his Thor collection, and I must have got 25 books of Thor. They were very nice early Thors, Journey into Mysteries,
Hmm.
and it's more money than I wanted to spend. I really didn't, and it always seems to happen when you're not flush. When
Hmm.
you have money in your pocket, I would go to conventions with money in my pocket, and I would have nothing I could buy. There was nothing to buy,
Yeah.
many times that happened. And so when you are presented with an opportunity, I've only had maybe in the entire time I've collected since 1960.
Hmm.
I've had just a handful of times when something like that has happened, and I've stepped up, and I've never regretted it. It was painful for a month or two, but then
Hmm.
after about a half a year or something, you look back and you're laughing because you got them.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's pretty much what I do, and I have an Instagram site in
Wait,
my.
wait, wait, wait. Let me don't give away too much yet. Wait, I have a couple more
Okay,
questions for you. I have a
all
couple
right,
more
go ahead.
questions. So what do you like? What are you actively hunting right now? Are you still hunting for books, or like, is there a book that you would really like to get?
Well, I really have pretty much everything that I do want. I
Hmm.
would like to fill in on my junior run because I don't have all of the Feldsteins. They're Sonny and some of those others.
Yeah, I have
if
all those.
they
Those are great.
present themselves, well, I've seen them on your wall.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
uh, Things like that. And there are a few various books, then there are the books that I didn't even know what they were, and then all of a sudden they're presented to me.
Hmm.
And then other times there are books that I've always liked but never had a chance to buy when they were then offered. My Wonder Comics 15 was one like that.
That's a great
Where
comic. I love
there it was offered to me. I took it, I had it cleaned and pressed and then slabbed, and so it's a very nice. And I thought that I
that.
was unfairly treated uh, by. I don't want to have extra from
Mhm.
CGC or CBCS. I don't think that they should give me more, but I really
Mhm.
don't appreciate when they give me less. And
Yeah.
if you have a book, my Startling 49 was the same way. It's at least a half a grade too shy, short,
Mhm.
or maybe a full grade. And I've seen other books that aren't as nice that have a higher grade. And I'm saying, well, which is it? Because it still is sometimes with judging, it is subjective. And
Mhm.
uh, and if they had a fight with their girlfriend or they haven't had anything to eat yet, I wish I
Yeah.
could work a deal where I could have coffee and donuts delivered to them and
Yeah. When they're
have them
trading,
grade my book.
but
I
then
mean,
you're gonna get like all these coffee stains and donut marks on
well,
your
that
book.
of course, I'd still get an 8.5, with
You
that,
get you get a 9.8, but you but it's like looks
So,
perfect.
and that is something. And then also, when you say, "Well, I'm going to have resubmit it and see about getting a better grade," the best
Mhm.
story I had on that, the best success I ever had, was my Batman #3.
Mhm.
It was a 4.0, judged a 4.0, and I
Mhm.
looked at the book and I've looked at a lot of books, and I just said this can't be a 4.0. So
Yeah.
I resubmitted it to, and at the time CBCS was really on a roll
Mhm.
and doing well. And so I said, I'm going to give Steve the can't think of his last name
Yeah, I forget.
a shot at this one. And they graded it as a 6.0,
Yeah.
and it is a 6.0, and I have it up on my Instagram wall. But the so I've had there. It's been the grading gods have smiled and they have frowned, but I have
Mhm.
found now that they tend to, based on what I'm seeing in the hobby, and also on guys' books that have collectors' books that have come back, and it's soul crushing if
Mhm.
especially if it's a book that is of a certain amount of value. You have a half or a whole grade off, and
Double the
it's
price
thousands
for
of dollars,
price.
and it's not necessarily I don't flip them, so it's not really quite
Mhm.
that, but I just want it to be fair, and that's the thing
Yeah.
that gets to me about it, is just be fair with me, that's all.
One of the things that I always think about is like, I know that there's a lot of people, like I would never do this myself. I'm like, especially because I'm in Canada, it's hard to ship the books and wait a year, basically a year for them to come back. And then you're always
If they
worrying,
come back.
yeah, if they come back, like Canada Post, I don't really trust it. And like, I don't trust that cross-border shipping. Um, but I know in the US where people can do it, right? They can ship it and they can do all the process, that I've heard so many times where they just keep on resubmitting a book until they get the grade that they want.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, on the census, how much of the census is real? Like where it's like it could be just ghost copies where that book has been resubmitted like 3 or 4 times. And so some of these golden age books especially, I wonder if there's as many as they say there are on the census, because it could be the same book, like just graded 3 or 4 times.
I have wondered that myself quite often, especially if it's a book that it was like the Cap Annual, I had it graded
Mhm.
once and it got graded again. Is the census of the population correct, or does it have
Mhm.
ghost copies in? That's a question that I think would be a very good one to find out from both CGC and CBCS for purposes of census.
Well, I do
I
know
don't know.
with the ones where they remove the restoration, like if you took that book, sent it to CGC, they crack it out for you and remove the restoration, they'll actually remove the previous copy from the census.
I'm assuming they do that.
Yeah,
I
they do. They clean up the census that way. But if you cracked it yourself and then did something to fix
There's no
it,
way
then
they would know.
they would no way to know. So, um, and that's
That's a
the
good
problem.
question. That's it's the only measure that we have. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm still unclear whether the books that have been graded by CBCS, and of course, if you go from company to company, the
Yeah.
census, then the one that's on CGC is now over on CBCS. If they ever put their census out, I don't even know if they've got. I heard there was some idea of commingling for the total census of books. Was it, I
Mhm.
think, Go Collect do that? Did they say, do they take both sides and then add them together, or what does it go?
No, they don't. But they'll show both, so you can like see the CGC census and the CBCS census. So as two numbers, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's so many where I'm wondering if the number is not quite. And I bet there's people that know the true thing about that. Like some of these golden age collectors, I think they know.
It's so nice that they share that with the rest of us. It's very charitable of them to share that with us.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think they're too open about sharing that kind of stuff. Okay, my dog is going crazy in the background, but but before I let you go, where can people find you, and what are you working on now in terms of comics? Are you still doing stuff for Overstreet, or what's going on?
I am I'm an advisor to to the guide. I'm not a dealer, so what I do is I talk about what I buy and my vibe on the hobby and how the market is going. And I'll explore various issues with comics and what have you. Uh, like I said, I've been doing that since 1995, it's a very nice way to. And I like the guide. Um, the guide is more of a buying guide now, but the information that's in the guide and as a resource to quickly look to find various books and dates and things if you're just looking, not having to dig into the computer, it's a very useful thing. And some of the features they have that they write about are very good. And there are also all kinds of ads for if you want to sell your books. There are any number of different dealers that are there, fiddler crabbing for your books.
Hmm.
And so there's a lot. But once any kind of a guide is printed, the instant that the ink is dry, it's out of date. And
Yeah.
all the information that comes into the guide has been accumulated from various times of the year. And with as volatile a market as we have, it's impossible to have a printed thing that would be able to give you accurate pricing.
Hmm.
And I also think that on the bigger books, almost anything goes as far as prices. Where you have two
Hmm.
motivated buyers, and a book is going to go and having no semblance of the. As a matter of fact, they sort of eschew
Hmm.
auction pricing there in the they might mention their auction at the very beginning, but it doesn't
Hmm.
seem to translate into their pricing inside the guide. And
Hmm.
but I very much like the guide. I very much like it, and I'm honored to be an advisor.
Part of
The
it
other
too.
thing, about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I started to go on Instagram.
Hmm.
So and a lot of this stuff was when COVID came, and you're stuck at home. One of the things when I was a kid was that you'd go to other kids' house and you'd be able to talk about books and enjoy fellow collectors. And Instagram has done this,
Hmm.
where you can meet a like-minded soul anywhere in the world who enjoys and has the same defective DNA interest in the
The
strand
comic.
the collector defect in
Hmm.
DNA. That if you're not a collector, if you've been looking for a book and you find it and you get it priced right and you hold it in your hand, you cannot describe to a non-collector how
That
wonderful
feeling.
that feeling
Mhm.
is. I wish that but the other half of it, then that's when the defective gene kicks in. Then you're on to the next one that you're trying to get.
I know
Oh,
you're always
I want
hunting.
this one. Once it's a momentary joy, a day or
Mhm.
two, and then then you have to get more as a
Yeah,
fix.
yeah.
So, but I think that the being able to be on Instagram and talking with people, like-minded people of
Mhm.
various ages, of all, every kind of culture, everything, who
Mhm.
share a love of comics, I think that it's a wonderful thing. And so my handle is Collecto6,
Okay.
and my particular preferences, I do like the superheroes, I do like science fiction, certain amount of crime, good girl, and
Mhm.
golden age in particular. They call me a golden age specialist in the guide for some reason.
I think you are. I think you are.
And maybe I am. I don't really know. I think there are guys that know a lot more. You know,
Mhm.
some guys know when Jack Kirby changed the ribbon on his typewriter. I mean, I don't know that when they got their cars oil changed or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't go there. But what I do know is that the levels of information that a lot of people have and share on
Mhm.
Instagram is wonderful, and
Mhm.
you also have someone that you can talk to, and I'm talking like I have Rutger Jan is in Holland, a
Mhm.
lot of people that are really you in Canada.
Mhm.
It's just, and I'm just in Portland, Oregon, what's left
Mhm.
of it, and it's a wonderful thing to do, and so I have been honing my. At first, I just would put the book up, and then very little information. And then as I got kind of warmed into it, I said, well, I like to have fun with a book.
Mhm.
And if it's quirky and kind of dopey, I like that
Mhm.
too.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's all good. So I like
Mhm.
to point out the various things. And especially when you have a Schomburg cover, I draw attention to the little vignettes that are around the cover because sometimes your eye goes right to the center ring of the circus,
Mhm.
but the other things going on, guys coming out of the walls with teeth,
Oh, so
knives
much
in their teeth,
detail. Yeah, yeah.
it's really good. And some of the good girl stuff and the covers
Mhm.
and the stories inside are just they're wild. And to basically
Mhm.
put that stuff in there and have fun with it verbally,
Mhm.
I very much enjoy doing that. I'm more I'm not clinical in my writing at all. I'm much
Mhm.
more feature driven because I enjoy skewering just a little bit, but it's all
Mhm.
from the heart and enjoyable. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy your writings on Instagram. They're quite
well,
fun.
thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. So anyway, that's basically my Collecto 6, small c on Collecto.
And I'll put that link to Stephen Gentner's Instagram in the description, so you can
Thank
go
you.
over there, check him out, and get him up to. I think you're up almost up to 2,000, isn't it?
I'm
People.
1,800 and change right now.
Yeah, we're gonna get to
I
2,000. That's the goal.
Alan, I don't know how these guys can have 45 posts and 4,000 followers. I don't quite understand it. I'm
Mhm.
whatever they're doing. And I've had guys say we can bump the number of your followers, etc.
Mhm.
And I much prefer just doing it organically.
Yeah,
That
me
if
too.
someone finds me or if I share with someone, I'm not all that concerned about the numbers as much as
Mhm.
I would like to be able to, but I would like to find more people to converse with and share the love of the books. And that is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, thanks, by the way. So we'll wrap it up here. It's almost exactly an hour long, this interview. So I hope people made it all the way through because it was really great talking to you. I mean, we talk all the time, but
Thanks, Alan.
I enjoy having you on my channel. I was like,
Thank you.
honestly, people that are watching this, I was begging him to come on this show for the longest time, and he finally agreed. So this is pretty great for me. So thanks again, Steve. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay. Bye.